All right, what's up, guys? Let's see here. And it's funny, every time I say that on the stream, now I know why my 3-year-old says, "Let's see here" all the time, because I must be saying it all the time. All right. All right, guys, we are live and we got actually a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Obviously today was the last day for anyone in the class action suit to opt out. So we're going to go over some of that. We're going to talk about some movement that's being made um, by a few coaches associations that are also lobbying for some of this stuff and lobbying against it, and also some great more information from Mitt Winter, who's the guy I would 100% follow him if you're interested in seeing how this settlement is playing out. Um, and we're going to go give it a few more minutes, and then we're going to get right into it. A little bit later start today, guys. I apologize for that. But a lot of interesting stuff to talk about because we are getting closer to seeing if the House settlement will be approved, and then ultimately we can figure out kind of how things are going to start solidifying. Because, like we talked about yesterday, I mean, it still has to be finalized, right? It's not finalized. There's a lot of people objecting to it. If a significant percentage, and doesn't have to be a majority, of people in the class, the damages class, opt out, like there could be issues that rise up. So we'll be looking at that. Buck B, what's up, Buck? Welcome to the chat, man. First chatter. Canes is kind of slacking lately, to be honest. But let's just go ahead and get right into one of these videos that I wanted to show you guys. Let me pull it up here, and it's just about Josh Pate from college football. Josh Pate's college football show basically says that, and you'll see it in the tweet as I pull this up. The NCAA's ability to take down major programs is gone. So let's hear what he has to say.
You're watching this stuff from the outside looking in. You're saying, all right, get all the legalese out of the way. Is Michigan going to burn for this? Are they going to go down for this? No. No. At least not as you and I define going down. I am very confident in telling you that Michigan punitively may suffer in the pocketbook. They may suffer in the wallet. You could certainly sell me on the idea that, boy, Michigan's going to have to pay a hefty fine for this. Well, who cares? In terms of punitive measures the NCAA could take that impact the future of that program and their ability to compete, taking away scholarships, the dreaded postseason ban. You would have to staple my eyelids to the back of my forehead and have me watch that happen in order for me to believe that's ever going to happen to this program, because it's too big to fail. We have long since reached that point in college athletics. Gone are the days where the NCAA is going to take on any program and really kneecap them in terms of their ability to compete on the field moving forward. Now, I'm talking about major programs. If the time comes where the NCAA really does look at Michigan and say, we're going to hammer you in areas beyond just the wallet, then it won't be the NCAA versus Michigan. It'll be the NCAA versus Michigan and the Big Ten, and every major network that the Big Ten is in a media rights deal with. These are networks that have invested several billions of dollars into acquiring the media rights for these conferences. It hurts you greatly if those assets are damaged, which is why it's not going to be allowed to happen. There is no world this point in moving forward where any of the big boys, Michigan certainly being one of them, is taken down in a way that used to happen. It used to be that the mere mentioning of those 4 letters together, NCAA, that was the equivalent of the feds knocking on your door. That was the equivalent of the IRS coming after you, normal citizen who works a 9 to 5, you live in the real world, you have to suffer consequences. That's what it used to be like. It's not like that anymore.
Yep. And, we got some more stuff we're going to go over, but just want to talk about this for a second, because obviously this is an individual case talking about the Michigan sign stealing stuff, which, yeah, fine. I mean, he's right. But you guys, you have to apply this to everything that's going on in college baseball right now, not just football, but everywhere, because the NCAA just has no power anymore. right? They set up a bunch of new rules, and players start suing the courts. They start suing the NCAA, and they fold. And the courts rule with the players. And all these changes we've seen in the last 3 years have all been from, or originating from, enough players taking this to court and basically saying it's not fair. I don't have the rights I should have as a player in NCAA. And the courts have been like, you're right, you're right, you're right. And the NCAA, instead of really fighting it because they don't want to spend the money, they've allowed this to happen. And again, when the first thing, if the NCAA didn't want all this to take place, when the transfer portal became a thing, which that, like, don't get me wrong, the transfer portal, people have been suing schools, the NCAA, for decades based on not getting to transfer and being stuck at a school and not getting to play, which is like, listen, you're the one that made the commitment and signed the NIL or the NLI. It didn't guarantee you were going to play, but that happened. And so the NCAA finally okayed it. All right, you can transfer. Well, then they said, well, I don't want to just transfer. I want to be able to transfer. What if the place I transfer to, I don't play there either? Okay, you can transfer as many times as you want. Well, of course, now the floodgates have opened, right? Because you didn't stand firm and fight for what you thought was how NCAA should be ruled. And you gave up and you let it happen. And now what we're seeing is just the NCAA in the last 3 years has lost more governing power than probably in the last 100 years prior to that. So, you just look at college sports in general and the way things are going. And I think, Buck, you might have brought this up yesterday. And Buck says something here. Agree with him. The NCAA has been neutered. Couldn't happen to a better bunch of lawyers. Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to say it. I mean, it's just been like they're just powerless now. The NCAA is at basically, it's kind of like the old adage: the inmates are running the asylum. The NCAA ceded all this power to the players, and now, like, it's just being totally taken advantage of. Whether you agree with some of the stuff that's happening or disagree, we can all agree that the only reason this has happened is because they gave a little bit, and now they gave an inch, they thought, then they gave a foot, then they gave 30 feet, and then they gave a mile. Like, this is how we've gotten to this point. And the video is a great just example of, again, across all sports, how much power the NCAA has lost over the last couple of years. And at some point, what may happen is like we've talked about prior, is that the conferences become the governing body, or there's a super conference that's made, and there's 100 plus schools in a super conference, and they're independent of the NCAA. Like, it's moving towards that. Like, the contract that these conferences have signed with the NCAA up till 2035, to me, in 10 years, if we get there, there's just no chance that the NCAA is what it used to be, as the governing body that decides all the rulings and the policies and everything like that. Because that's just not how it's going. And because what you have to understand is this as well. 70 years ago, there wasn't a lot of money in college sports. The difference between a top tier school athletically and like a mid major was not that different. And so as there's been more money put into sports, the Power Four conferences have started to really pull apart from the mid majors and the lower D1s. And now with NIL in the transfer portal, it's becoming even more of a pull apart. So you're like your Power Four type school, like an A&M or a Clemson, or a University of Texas, or a school that has a lot of NIL money, a lot of scholarship money. They're not even close to some of these schools that are even mid majors and low D1s, just with the amount of money they have at their disposal to impact the players they bring in and the coaching staffs that they're able to bring in and the support staff that they can have. Like, a lot of these schools guys, they have interns. They have people that are doing all the data for the coaches, so the coaches can just 100% focus on the development. right? And they have guys that are working for them that are doing all the stuff in the back end, and they can look at the finished product, be like, okay, this is what I got to do. Um, and so you take a school like that, like at Wake Forest. I mean, they have the whole pitching lab where there's like, they got like 10 guys working in that thing, right? So how much easier is Corey Mascara's job in the sense that, not like that he's not doing the work, but he doesn't have to spend time going through the spreadsheets. He gets the spreadsheet sent to him, and now he knows what he's got to do, right? That's just it just makes his job way more streamlined. Matt shoots. What? Typo. Okay. Buck, I agree it's heading toward the ADs creating a new super conference, although remember, that's how the NCAA was created. Question is, does the NCAA have any leverage via media contracts? Yeah, I mean, again, it's way more complicated than the level we're discussing it at, but it just seems like the less and less power the NCAA has, like these big time conferences like the SEC and the ACC in particular, are going to be looking at the NCAA like, you're not doing anything. Like, what service do you, what role are you playing in college sports? Every ruling that you bring down gets overruled, or you flop on it because of enough people are bringing this to court. It just seems like that's the logical endpoint of what's been going on, is that at some point these, the SEC for sure, who is the premier conference in all of college sports, generally speaking, how are they going to, like, the issue is this: the NCAA has to govern your lower D1s, your mid majors, your power fours, and then your kind of top tier power fours that have all this money. And the SEC is going to look at it like, man, you're making these rulings that they're not helping us. Like, why should we be involved in this? We're the ones bringing in all the money. Do what we want you to do, right? So there's all these conflicting interests that are just is going to create a schism, and already has, really. And so, I thought that video was interesting and good to talk about it. But let's look at some of this other stuff. So this is an interesting one from Mitt Winter, the guy we've been talking about a lot. Matt says it was a typo. Yeah, no problem, dude. A quick look at what college athlete contracts with schools are currently looking like. With clauses/provisions like these below, how long are people going to continue pretending these are just NIL agreements and not agreements for playing football? Right, so this one right here says basically, if the athlete fails to disclose known physical or mental health conditions that could impair his ability to compete, the school can reduce payments by 50%. Okay. That doesn't seem like a name, image, likeness contract. That's like, oh, this is what a professional contract basically says. But in a professional contract, it would probably say something like the contract's void. Right? So a little bit more forgiving, I guess. The Big 12 athlete will receive equal monthly payments from July through November, but the deal is backloaded. In December, he will earn a standard month's pay plus a 150% increase, essentially a bowl bonus. This structure helps address postseason participation concerns in college football. So all these football players are skipping out on the bowl because they don't want to get hurt for the draft, or they're going in the portal in December. Guys, remember this. So a lot of players are like, I'm not playing in the bowl because I'm going to go in the portal. Well, if you're getting 1 month's pay plus 150% increase, so you're basically getting more than double what you get in every other month. Now you're being incentivized to stay for the bowl and not go in the portal. But that's not a name, image, likeness contract. That's not getting paid for your name, image, likeness. That's getting paid for your participation in a bowl game, right? And they can put all the kind of the legalese they want around it, but that's the heart of it. The heart of it is that, okay, if you play in the bowl game, you get like more than double what you would get in a normal month. And then here, December payments are equal but not paid out until December 31st, 2025, or 10 days after the team's last game, whichever is later, to ensure participation in a January bowl game or the college football playoff. So just another way to just keep them from going in that December portal period, and make sure that they're participating in a January bowl game. So we're getting close to, I do think, now this may not decrease NIL by anything, but I do think you are getting to the point where people are realizing that this isn't what name, image, likeness was intended to be, right? And it's the same thing what the transfer portal was intended to be. The NCAA, what the NCAA has really been bad at is seeing, okay, how is this going to be abused? How's the transfer portal going to be abused? How's name, image, likeness payments going to be abused? Right? Because that's in your decision making, you always have to look at, okay, is there something, what are the downstream consequences of this going to be? How are people going to be able to abuse this system? And like I've told you guys plenty of times, I mean, a lot of these schools have basically NIL funds that are like independent of the school, but in a sense, they can't, a coach can't tell them who to give money to. But if they're talking with the coach, and he's like, man, we're really hoping we're really looking for a shortstop here. And then all of a sudden, like the shortstop gets committed, or a shortstop's being on a visit on campus, and that word gets spread around somehow, then they pay the shortstop, right? So there's ways around this, and I've been in these meetings. That's why I know. And like, that's not what name, image, likeness was intended to be. Name, image, likeness was intended to be like your mom and pop, again, maybe not mom and pop, but like a business is paying you to make an appearance or sit at a table and sign autographs, or, have a dish in the restaurant named after you. You come in and eat it and talk about how good it was. Like, and now you get a payment for that, right? There was name, image, likeness, like the purity, the pure argument for name, image, likeness was like, let these guys do stuff to make money, like make an appearance at a restaurant, at a local restaurant in a college town that everybody's a big college fan. That's what they wanted. Now a kid is getting paid just to be on the team, right? That's not what was intended to happen. Like the intention was not that, okay, we're going to get all the boosters together and just give guys checks. That was not what people were intending with NIL. But again, the NCAA is not good at seeing downhill or downstream consequences. Cardboard Baseball, what's up, Cardboard? How you doing, man? Good to see you, dude. Thanks for joining in. We're just talking about some of this stuff. These college football contracts, I mean, they're not name, image, likeness contracts. It's like incentivization to play in the bowl game. So like Cardboard, for example, in this part of a contract to a Big 12 football player, it says you'll receive equal monthly payments from July through November, but the deal is backloaded. In December, he will earn a standard month's pay plus 150% increase, essentially a bowl bonus. So this is how they're trying to incentivize guys to not skip out on the bowls and not go in the portal in December. And so you're going to get more than double your monthly pay in December. So it's like, this is incentivizing you to play and stay for the bowl game in December, which, like, I hate that guys have to be incentivized to play for their team. But that's the way it is. We watched this video talking about, Josh Pate saying the NCAA's ability to take down major programs is essentially gone. And it was really good. Just applying that to all sports and what we're seeing in baseball. Like, he was talking about the Michigan football program and the sign stealing stuff. But in a sense, the NCAA just doesn't have any power anymore. Like, the University of Michigan football team is, there's big streaming payments that are like streaming services that are having people tune in. TV ratings, radio stuff are all paying big money to have Michigan football on their TV and in their streaming services. So, like, they're not going to allow Michigan football to be penalized and kneecapped, which is true. Zach, what's up, Zach? NIL was supposed to be for players like Reggie Bush, Buster Posey. Now the backup catcher gets NIL. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, there's not a lot of backup catchers that are getting any kind of significant. Like at most programs, the backup catcher's not getting anything. I mean, at most programs, even the catcher's not really getting anything right now in baseball. I mean, you have to be at a really good program that's really backed up with NIL. Like, I think I think people out there think there's way more NIL money in college baseball than there is. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot, but it's only coming from like big time programs, essentially. There are a few outliers, and that is going to continue to grow. But you're right in a sense, name, image, likeness, like, It was supposed to be like star players at every household names. And then if you're like, again, it was intended for if you're, let me try to give an example. Let's say like at Georgia Tech, one of the places we would go eat as the baseball team, we would always go hang out at Rocky Mountain Pizza. Like that, that's where we would go. So let's say you're a solid player at Georgia Tech, you're a starter, like a second team, third team all ACC player, like you're a really good player in the ACC and at Georgia Tech. And Rocky Mountain Pizza is like, hey man, we want to do a like, can you put out on social media that this is where the baseball team hangs out, the best pizza or the best, best food, bar food, whatever, around Georgia Tech campus, because right off Georgia Tech campus, like right off the 8th Street apartments where we all lived as freshmen. So we went there all the time. Now, if they're like, we're going to pay you $1,000 to make like 5 social media posts to, just advertising us, that's what it was intended to be. It was intended to be like, oh, that local place that like loves the baseball team is going to and wants to use them as marketing can do it. It wasn't intended for like the booster fund to be like, okay, 200,000. That's just not what it was intended, but that's what happens. Matt Schutz reminds me of geezers in government trying to regulate crypto, always on the back foot, not really understanding that the schools you're trying to regulate were going to stretch NIL to the extreme. Exactly. Like, how could you not see this coming? Right? How could you not see that it was basically going to be the schools with the biggest booster systems and the biggest, booster collectives, that were the guys that were probably paying guys under the table back in the day. We're just going to be like, oh, we can actually do this legally now? Like, oh my gosh, it's even better. We can just write him a check, wire it to his account. Don't have to give it to him in cash in a back alley somewhere or whatever they would do. But you're exactly right, Matt. I mean, it's the same thing essentially. It's just like really just have no idea. It seemed to me the NCAA is just like their processes must not be very good, because how did someone not bring this up and it wasn't like immediately thought like, oh yeah, you're right about that. We need to put some statutes in there that say you can't do this, or there has to be some kind of service provided from the player to get the money or something like that. Zach, or the backup QB is a better example. 100%, way better example. NIL needs to be renamed pay for play. Yeah, backup QB. Like I know, for example, a guy whose brother-in-law was the backup QB. I don't know if maybe starting now. I don't know, but like a year or two ago at a good SEC school, was getting $500,000 a year, and they were going to buy him like a Ford Raptor, and he was the backup QB. Now he was a like 5-star recruit, I think. So like obviously he's looked at as a guy that's going to be starter in the future. But still, like you're paying that guy $500,000 to sit on the bench and drive around a Ford Raptor. So you're right, Zach. That is the best. But like I told you, like kicker at Georgia Tech, who's very average, from what I heard, is making $250. So it's like that's even a more ridiculous example. Is that like a place kicker who's like run of the mill average, maybe even below average, is making $250,000 a year, which is crazy. Wes, what's up, dude? How do all D1 football players get away with taking steroids? Wes, you always ask the best questions, and since I'm not a football guy, I don't know. I will tell you that I did know a guy who played in the NFL, and he told me, and again, this was like years ago, so take it with a grain of salt, and also like processes could be totally changed now. But he did say that like basically your steroid test, like in baseball, there's definitely people that are finding ways around it, but it's much more difficult because you're randomly tested. It could be before a game, after a game. So there's no way to you don't get informed like months in advance. Whereas I heard in the NFL, like with enough time in advance that like if you are on something, you cycle off it or whatever. So college football, I'm guessing they're probably a little bit more serious about it. I don't know enough guys in college football to know if that's actually something that's going on. I could tell you in baseball, I mean, there are definitely guys that are still getting away with it and taking things in certain ways that they're able to hide from tests. But that's all dark black market stuff. I mean, there's not a whole lot of guys doing it, just to be honest. But so football, I'm not sure. I just know that in the years past in the NFL, it was like you got the tests where you knew so far in advance, like you could hide it. Remember back in the old days of 2020 when athletes with Instagram under threat of penalty for selling merch like any other influencer? Yeah, yeah, exactly. God forbid, guys. And that was the most ridiculous thing, right? It's like, listen, you're not a professional baseball player if you're starting a brand and you're making money off yourself as a brand. Like you're no institution is paying you to play. You're an entrepreneur and you're making money that way. Like that was always a ridiculous thing, and that's why NIL became a thing because if you looked really hard at it, it's like we're penalizing guys for making like $500 for selling T-shirts or for a restaurant wanting them to make an appearance, right? So that's why we got here, but they didn't do the due diligence, I think, in understanding how would it be abused. Kane's finally in here. Good evening, Kane's. Cardboard Baseball, bachelor's in sports marketing and media. I don't work in the field because of the cutthroat marketing tactics and some of the campaigns you have to get behind that you individually don't believe in. Yeah, I can understand that. I can agree. I can understand that, man. 100%. Afternoon. Yeah, that's right, Kane. It's afternoon. Marketing has ruined a lot of things. Yeah, and I think we're so just inundated with marketing in all aspects of our lives that it doesn't have. I think marketing in general, like if you really are like the elite marketer, like you're very successful, but your run of the mill marketing is just we are so conditioned now to see marketing all the time. It doesn't quite have the impact that I think it used to have. And like I said, don't get me wrong, like the guys that come up with some of these videos for ads and stuff, like some of them are really good, but then like your run of the mill commercials, you're just like, you look at it like, do people actually like call these numbers from these commercials? Like that's how I always think about it. I'm like, do these commercials like really convince people to use their product? And I guess they must because they're paying for it and they're doing an analysis, and I'm assuming they're getting more from the ads and what they're making or what they're paying for them. But still, in my eyes, I'm always just like, do these work on people? Shopping and buying inventory. Nice, Canes. Daniel Cuvée ranked #1 third baseman in the land. Well deserved. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that today from D1 Baseball. I figured you'd be talking about it. Wes, I had a teammate in college baseball, and he was a bench warmer, and he took steroids and became second team All American the next year. Okay. Yeah, if you're not, I don't know if I can believe you or not, Wes, because it's just like I and I want to talk about this a little bit, but like steroids, I want to be very clear. Like steroids really do not make you like a superstar player. They can enhance your physical traits, definitely help with recovery. Um, Depends on what you're taking, right? HGH is different than other kinds of steroids, but like I think there's this idea that um, steroids just well, like Barry Bonds, for example. Like the only reason he was nasty is because he took steroids. No, Barry Bonds was elite before he took steroids, but steroids just kind of enhanced him physically, and obviously hit more home runs and stuff like that. Um, but I would have to know what year this was in, Wes, and what division this was at to have a better idea if this is believable or not. Because I got tested for stuff like that in college, so I mean, it's not definitely not something. And you hear about that in JUCO all the time, right? That's not. But to go from a bench warmer to second team All American, well, maybe he was a really good player, and then the next year he got playing time, and he was a good player, and he took steroids, so it made him better. I believe, though, as long as you aren't performing with steroids, you're only using it for training and recovery from injury on the IL. The only way you can use it is if you're on the IL. Yeah, I guess I understand that. Like maybe even more, a better thing to say is like HGH over steroids, because that's really going to enhance your recovery. But it's just like a question of, well, how long does that impact your system? And is there a way to make it to where it only will impact you while you're on the IL and you won't get a boost from it for a few weeks after you're off the IL? Like that's the question, right? And to me, like I always use, because I don't know if I've talked to you guys about this, but so there is a new steroid in professional baseball that everyone uses, or at least most of the guys are on, and it's called Adderall. Now, I played with guys in AAA who I'll give you an example. I was always very good approach, good eye at the plate, took a lot of walks, could take a lot of really close pitches for ball fours and stuff like that. Just really good approach, good bat to ball, etc. That was my strength, was my approach, my focus, my eye at the plate. I played with multiple guys who ended up playing in the big leagues who, all of a sudden in AAA, they couldn't focus anymore. Because here's the scary truth with Adderall and like all these, these Vyvanse and stuff like that, like these ADHD medicines, is that there's no test. Like there's no test. There's no like blood test that you take and it's like you have ADHD. They do behavioral tests. And like I know one guy, for example, who told me he just completely faked it to get it. Because these guys all know you get on Adderall, you're gonna get a major boost for at least a year. Every guy I saw get on it had a career year the first year they were on it. Every single one. And as a player who was like, I'm not getting on this. I don't need it. I don't want to be addicted to some kind of medicine that I'm going to be dependent on for the rest of my life. But also, I saw all these guys who didn't have the strengths I did. All of a sudden, bam, overnight, man, spitting on close pitches, locked in, all this kind of stuff. Let me answer some of these questions to get back to what I was saying. I'll be practicing today, hoping to see improved defense. Coaches poll has us at number 11 in the ACC. Yep. At this point, NCAA doesn't have the authority to try to limit NIL in any way. Would immediately lose in court. 100% as well. 100%. You're exactly right. Nothing against players making money. Just something about the grind of college not having NIL back in the day helps later in life since so few go pro. That's a good point too, Manny. What's the impact later on in life going to be? It's true. Steroids improve a player so much in baseball because it activates fast twitch muscles. I mean, like you're making very general statements, and like I've seen guys get on steroids and like they didn't improve at all, right? So it's up in the air. It's definitely going to help people, right? It's definitely going to help people. Some guys you're not going to see a huge impact. Depends on what they're taking and everything like that. It was in NAIA. Well, like you can track the ball so much better on roids because it improves your eye muscles as well. Maybe. Again, like I'm not an expert on steroids, so as long as Tatis was using HGH to recover, I am okay with that. Yeah, he was using. I'll give you this. He was probably using some other stuff too. But everyone has recommended Adderall now. I have a small amount of ADHD, and as a kid, they gave me Adderall. Small doses didn't really do anything. No, I mean, so like, this is what, and I've talked to guys who've been on it. Okay, so I'll give you my opinion and some anecdotal evidence from guys I've talked to that have played with it and everything like that. Certainly, there are a small percentage of people in the world that is a benefit for them. Like people that, like you mentioned, Canes, like it's very overly prescribed. Like basically what we do is we take little boys who need to be running around playing, exhausting themselves, and we put them in make them sit in a chair for 8 hours a day, and they get 30 minutes of recess, and then they become hyperactive because boys in general are way more hyperactive than girls at young ages. And then the school counselor or whoever says, he's very hyperactive, like you need to get him checked out for ADHD. And you go to the doctor and you say, well, he's acting up in class. He's got a lot of energy. He's fidgety. And they say, oh yeah, we'll give him this to calm him down. So we're suppressing these boys' natural instincts and natural way that they are. And it's terrible. But so look at baseball, for example, what guys are doing. And there's this guy played in the big leagues for 10 plus years. Right, so this guy's a major league lifer. He told me that he was hungover one game in high A, and one of his buddies was like, "Hey, just take one of these, like you'll be good." He said, "I went from being hungover an hour before the game to locked in to the point where I'm getting the best jumps I've ever gotten on the base paths. I'm not missing a pitch. I'm tracking it like locked in slow motion." He just told me what he got out of it. It was immense. And I can tell you from like I said, the guys I played with, and to me, it was even almost like if you got put on the 40 man, somehow you got an Adderall prescription. It was a little bit coincidental with how that happened, but This was my argument always, and this was a widely known thing in minor league baseball, especially in AAA when you're like fighting to get to the big leagues. And we had clubhouse wide discussions about it, and we said I made the distinction because one guy was saying, well, I need it and I can't focus like you, Kyle. That's like, that's not fair that you get focused. And I said, dude, you can hit the ball 500 feet. I can't hit the ball 500 feet. Is it fair that you can hit the ball 500 feet? No. Does that give me the right to take steroids so I can hit the ball 500 feet too? If you can take Adderall, can I take steroids? And he was like, no, you can't take steroids. It's not the same thing. And I said, it's exactly the same thing. You're saying there's a deficiency in your game, and it's not fair because other players don't have a deficiency and you do. But when I tell you I have a deficiency in my game that you don't, you're saying it's not fair that I get to repair that deficiency. Right? That's my argument. And the argument for those of us on the team that were against it were like, the major leagues should be the best players in the world, bar none, not enhanced. So there's my soapbox. Anyone can get Adderall now. That's right, Gaines. Anyone can get it. Now go through these. All you guys are talking. I'm on a soapbox. You guys are asking a lot of stuff. And back in your dad's day, they wouldn't test for ADHD. They would just say you daydream a lot, or yeah, Gaines. Well, yeah, back in my dad's day, I mean, all these guys were on greenies, which are amphetamines that are essentially the same thing. So they basically just found a way to legalize amphetamines for players, which people were using in Major League Baseball for decades before they were outlawed. How about do it the right way? Lift weights and eat a clean diet. Yeah, 100%. I'm a 15-year Army Special Operations veteran. Thank you for your service, Cardboard. I had a major neck injury that caused me to have to be medically retired, and you can imagine what happened to me with the pain meds. Yeah, I mean that's kind of a very common story in and for military veterans, right? Cardboard, that have some kind of injury, is, man, these opioids are just, I mean, terrifying, right? I mean, it's like you just take it like. And my mom and dad were always very protective of us, like with opioids, because they were, they knew that, and it was like, okay, you can take this for like 2 days, and as soon as you feel like the pain's manageable, we're done. We're going to ibuprofen or whatever. Because yeah, I mean, I bet that was brutal. Canes, if you take the highest dose, you will 1,000% get wired up for sure. Oh, 100%, dude. I mean, I could tell guys, like, you could watch these guys in interviews in Major League Baseball and say, you can tell if you know what to look for. You're like, dude, this guy's zonked out of his mind. I'll give you I'm not going to say the names because I don't want to do that, but there was a major superstar in Major League Baseball who I know from one of his teammates. He made a swing change. Okay, that may give you a clue. Made a swing change, and he started becoming a star. And his teammate told me, the same guy who took the Adderall in high A when he was hungover. So he was teammates with this guy in the big leagues. He said, yeah, he got on Adderall, and the first year he went off, he became a star. And then he realized in like halfway through the second year that he wasn't getting the same effect because he was on the same dose and his body was starting to kind of get used to it. So what he did is in the 5th inning, he would re-up. So he'd take one before the game, hour before the game or whatever, and then he'd take one 3rd or 4th inning. And so imagine that you're just creating a dependency, but in order to chase the money, which, like, okay, that's what he's willing to do, and stardom, that's what they did. So like there is a steroid in college, in professional baseball. I think it's something, the stat was when I was in professional baseball, the stat was like 5% of the population was on ADHD medicine and 50% of professional baseball players. If that tells you they may be, gaming the system, because they probably are. Jose Canseco said he never even would have made it to the minor leagues if he wasn't on steroids. Yeah, come on, dude. That's Jose Canseco. Like, that's not a good source of, information. Like, the reality is that's not the case. Because steroids don't make you an athlete. Steroids don't make you a good baseball player. They enhance you if you are a good baseball player, and they enhance you if you are a good athlete, but they don't make you a good baseball player. Like, some unathletic idiot who's like a run-of-the-mill high school baseball player is not going to take steroids and then become a superstar. That's not how it works. I'm a recovery success story, though. That's awesome, dude. That's good to hear. Between coaching and baseball and my testosterone being correct, I've been able to recover. Don't get on those meds. It's not worth it. That's awesome, dude. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you're able to recover from that. Yeah, and it's crazy the testosterone levels. Like if your testosterone levels are are low, like you feel like you can't do anything, you can't motivate yourself. Um, so that's awesome, dude. Yes, prescribing children those drugs is crazy. Yeah, and it really suppresses from what because I did a lot of research on it when I was in baseball because I was just like, what is going on with all these people taking it? And like it suppresses your play instinct. And so what you'll find with young kids is they suppress like that's how they learn, especially boys, they learn through play. And so if you're suppressing their play instinct, they're not playing, so they're not learning, and then they end up becoming this kind of socially awkward kid because they didn't want to play with all the kids when they were 7, so they didn't learn how to social or 5 or 4, and they didn't learn how to socialize. And yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous to give a little kid any kind of medicine like that. If I ever had a doctor or a counselor recommend that to me and my wife about one of our sons, she would have to be holding me back. Many of my military teammates were on something. Yeah, and I think that's like I don't have any experience in the military cardboard, so I want to add, but I'm guessing like they maybe want guys on some performance enhancing stuff in the military. Like you kind of when your life's on the line, you want guys performing at their best, but anything's legal as long as you get away with it. Yeah, if I want you to live your life by that motto, Wes, and tell me how it ends up. Everybody gets doesn't. I don't think anybody gets away with it in the end. There's a player that there's players that do that with weed. What play on it? I mean, I've know guys that have played. I mean, I know guys that have played drunk. I know guys that have played high. I mean, that's just it's like anything in life. There's going to be guys that do that. I think that's what you meant, Canes. If not, let me know. They're up. They're up mid game. Yeah, I mean, I like listen. When I was playing in the Cape, I knew guys that did that. I definitely never did that. I don't know if I had the cojones to do something like that ever. I know one in particular. Don't say his name. How strict was your coach, Kyle, the night before games as far as going out at Tech? Oh, like I'm not. I never went out. Like I never went out. It's just because I knew what my goals were, man. You know, like I didn't. I wanted to perform at my best. Now, did some of the like bench guys and maybe some bullpen guys didn't feel like they were going to pitch? Did they go out sometimes? Yeah. But they did room checks and everything. So like you had to be pretty, one, you had to be pretty ballsy, and two, you had to be pretty creative with how you did that. But like, yeah, I mean, they'd wait for the room check and then, wait an hour later or whatever, and then sneak out or something. Like I said, I never did it. Because I didn't want to be, I didn't want to have lack of sleep. I didn't want to have alcohol in my system, and trying to play baseball. So they were pretty strict about it. And I think that's common with pretty much every baseball team. Cause you don't want number one, you want your guys playing in tip top shape. Cause so you want to take away any thought for them to do that. And then secondly, you definitely don't want them getting in trouble out on the road. I mean, that's going to look really bad on you as a coach. So, they're pretty strict about it. But like I said, I mean, no matter how strict you are, some guys are going to try to do something anyway. But those typically, well, I'll say it like this: the starters were never doing that, generally speaking. Because if your goal is to play professional baseball, that means you got to perform in college, which means you need to be in tip-top shape, mentally, physically, spiritually, everything, anything you need. So they were really strict about it, strict enough for sure. Many of us have been diagnosed with something called operator syndrome. There is a lot of stuff about it. Too much to type here. This is what kills our testosterone, even at the ages of 30. Yeah, I mean, I could understand cardboard where if you're like a special forces operator, I mean, you're used to being in like every situation out, like on a mission is a life or death choice. So like, there's so much, like, and I'll kind of make a comparison. That's not, again, this is not the weight of being on a special forces mission or anything like that. But I can imagine if your brain and body are so used to making decisions that are so important that like your life is on the line, that gives you a big testosterone boost, a big dopamine boost, because you're like, every decision matters. Every decision I make for these next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours I'm on a mission is going to be the difference between me coming home tonight or not making it. When I was in professional baseball, and more importantly, my dad, when he was a general manager, because he says he didn't really watch Major League Baseball anymore, because and he made the connection that I used to be running Major League Baseball teams. I used to be making important decisions, and so just obviously interconnected to the game, that now that I'm not, it's just not as like, I'm just not into it as much. And so to me, it's like when military guys come back from uh, deployment, or they retire, or like in your case, kind of medically retired because of injury. Um, you're so used to making decisions that are kind of like your life is on the line, and you get back to like US and regular life, and you're just like, I'm deciding like what I want to eat tonight and what I want to get from the grocery store. And even a normal job, you're like, I'm running an expense report. It's like, this doesn't bring the meaning to me, because like there's nothing more meaningful than making a decision that's life or death, right? So I think maybe I'm right about that, maybe I'm not, but no, you're so right about making the comparison. It's similar in ways, my brother. Yeah, I mean, I could sense that's kind of what it, I mean, and that's what a lot of people, I mean, you hear stories from guys who are, they finish their career in the military, or they're back home from deployment, and they're just like, you're so used to your life being on the line, that does, and there is a lot of value and meaning in that, because you're like, every decision is so critical. And when you're making these like very kind of rudimentary decisions that don't really impact your life at all, and that's kind of normal, it just seems like of course your testosterone will go out of whack, because it's like, I would imagine in the military your testosterone boosts because you're just, everything is so crazy all the time. At least if you're on deployment and in combat, like 100%. I had 0% chance of barreling a 95-mile-an-hour fastball in my 20s. After taking Sustanin 250 and putting on 25 pounds of muscle in a short period of time, I still had 0% chance. Okay, I thought that was going somewhere else. Like you were gonna be like, I started just ripping 95 heaters, but there you go. So yeah, that makes sense, right? It's gonna make you stronger and maybe a little bit more explosive, but like it's not gonna turn you know, it's not going to turn someone into a major league superstar. They wreck your natural hormones. Will never do it again. Yeah, that's exactly. It's like, I mean, that's why, I mean, I would never take them. But like, if you think about I mean, guys that usually take those long term, they die when they're 45 or 50 years old. And you have to be on, hormone replacement uh, regimens for the rest of your life. It's so crazy. There's a dude who's a veteran who's playing JUCO ball. He's 42, I think. I think I saw that. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to follow. I don't know what I think about it, just because, like, I get it, but at the same time, like, there's probably an 18-year-old kid who wanted to play college baseball. So it'll be interesting to follow. I just don't know how I feel about it. But no, great conversation today, guys. I got to step off a little bit early today, just because I had to start a little bit later. But we'll be back again Monday with another stream. Great conversations. We're getting close to college baseball season, guys, so going to be exciting to cover some of that stuff. But stay tuned for video coming out later tonight. And I'll see you guys again Monday. We'll have videos on the weekend, but stream will be